Have you ever found yourself wondering, why do I feel stuck? Maybe you set goals, dream big, and taken a few steps forward, but something still seems to be holding you back from taking full control of your life. This is a question many of us wrestle with as we try to progress from one stage to another, whether it's in relationships, career, or personal growths. In this conversation, we're diving deep into what's truly holding people back from living with a sense of purpose and control. We'll explore how self awareness, fear, mindset, responsibility, and disciplined action can catch each play a critical role in unlocking your potential and overcoming these challenges. So, if you're ready to gain practical insights and find new ways to finally take charge of your life, stay with us. Each step in this discussion is designed to guide you from awareness to action, helping you experience growth and lasting change. So, that being said, let's dive in. Now, Brother Gaddy, we haven't really done this in a while. It's been a minute since it was just you and I, but I'm here for it and I'm loving. I'm excited about how this is going to happen. Now, for everybody who's listening, remember this is the Empowering Perspective YouTube channel, and on this channel we invite all perspectives. It doesn't matter what it is. So that being said, make sure that you share your perspective, ask your questions, give your insights in the chat, and again, we'll bring them to the stage and entertain them along with the conversation that we're having. So, as we get ready to move forward, what I want to kind of do is put this question out here. I want to set the stage for it as well, because this is our opportunity to kind of look back over our life and look at some things as we consider it moving forward. So, if you will, sir, can you share a time when you felt limited or held back from reaching a goal? And what did you learn about yourself in that experience?
To be honest with you, so for me, it goes back to making Sergeant E5. Back back when I first went to the board, you know, points for a 42 alpha was woo, 798 always. And when they would drop a little here, drop a little there, I would watch people who I'm like, how did they promote before me? And all this other good stuff. And I felt like there were barriers in my way. One, I went to the board fairly early. I didn't take advantage as a private of opportunities to go take this course and do these things that people were sharing with me because I was stationed at Fort Jackson, um, and there's a lot of resources, but I didn't take advantage of them. So I waited till I was promotable and I was trying to crunch and do this, and I got what I can affect. I shot 38 to 39 almost every time. My PT score was 300 at the time, all the time. And my correspondence course, I got that. I did what I felt like I can affect right away. Um, but feeling held back, I felt like I made myself essential pretty early, and so because of that, it caused me to go to the board early on. Like as soon as the waiver opportunity, bam, I went and I stood before the board, and that also plagued me to the point of when opportunities to go to school went down, they were sending guys that they didn't mind losing.
Mm,
We were short on skills, and they were like, "Nope, not you, Gaddy. We need you. You know how to do this. They don't know how to cover down. You do." And I'm like, "How did I become so essential so quick to where I can't even progress?" And I felt like it was not the scale wasn't tilted against me, but I felt like I was being held from doing what I need to do to progress. Um, and what I learned about myself in that experience is that I was not honest with myself all the way because I shied away at the time from going back to school, right? My civilian education, and a lot of that was because I've never been a good student. When you get to everybody I think that's here that's been in the military has been to Fort Cavazos, Fort Hood, and yeah, you do a lot of deploying, a lot of field problems, and I was like, oh, I can't go to school online. I'm a fail. I'm not a good student. I'm not smart, and I psyched myself out of doing stuff like that, and that was totally on me. Though I blamed not being able to do military education, but I could have done some of my personal professional development that I did not do and I did not take advantage of. So that's what I learned about myself. I had to be honest and I had to face the music. If I don't have these points, it's no one's problem but mine. When they drop, I have to be there to reach them. You know, so
Yeah,
that's my in the whole nutshell.
yeah, I get that, and funny. That was going to be. I was going to talk about my time in the military as well, and it was more so about me failing to make sergeant major. But I don't want to go there. I want to go to something that most people deal with, and of course, one of the things that I do not mind sharing and have shared on several occasions is me as a man having a failed marriage. Um, and I think the issue that I went through initially is, this is what she did, and she didn't do this, and she didn't do that, and she didn't do this. And as I tell the story, a lot of times I'm reminded that there was a point in time where I was sitting alone in my house, and this was probably about 2, 3 years after the divorce was final. And I'm sitting alone in my house and I'm just listening, and I'm hearing this voice in my head that say, okay, that's fine, you're right, all those things that you're saying is accurate, but what about the things that you could have done? What about the things that you didn't do? And so at that point, when I started looking at it from that perspective, everything changed. And so the thing that I learned about me in that particular moment, because I think everybody has it in them to a certain degree, it's easy to look at what happened to you. And those are factual things, like this actually happened, that actually happened. But what part did you play in it? And once I started owning that part, then everything, the way I viewed everything in relation to that changed. So the learning point for me during that moment is stop looking at things from the perspective of the victim and start looking at it from the perspective of the learner. And when I started looking at things, and it's my job, my goal today to look at everything from the perspective of the learner. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be work related, it could be relationship related, it could be, I don't know, whatever. If I'm traveling from here to there, I look at it from that perspective as well. And so now, as the learner, it's like when I look at the things that took place, even though these things may have happened to me, how did I set the stage for this? What actually, what was um my actions in that moment? Even if I did absolutely nothing to provoke it, now I get to gauge how I responded to the thing as well. So that's kind of like where I'm gonna go in relation to this, because I think everybody can look at themselves and see both in the within the context of what both you and I shared. I think they can see a portion of themselves in that. So I just want to kind of put that out there and see what else you had to add to it before I started pulling some of the stuff from the chat.
Yeah, no, because I think it's interesting that we don't really explore failure the way that we should. And I know people talk about it a lot, but I think it's glossed over when we do. Like, are we really learning from even failures, right? Because in that I think what I learned going through that is some things you just have to do. You just have to try. And that's one of my biggest regrets. Like, what rank could I have gotten? How far could I have gone if I would have just went to school early on? If I would have just did this and stopped telling myself I wasn't this, and I wasn't that, and that learning that, or sitting there and actually examining, because I think the first part about learning is actually doing an overview. Because
Hmm.
I tell people most times the thing I learned about school now is that I don't really learn as much in school in the classroom as I do when I go home and and review the notes. And so when we go back and we review the notes and we see where things got better and where things got worse, now I know how I can progress, or not even how, where I can progress. The how I can progress comes with self. It comes with me examining me now. What stopped me from taking this course, from going this direction? And it was because I told myself I wasn't a good student. Well, who
Mm,
cares? Just go back to school, figure it out.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
But at my age, I think about it now. At my age, the military has taught me how to be a good student, and I didn't even notice that. How many
Mm,
times we went to classes and NCOs was like lurking around the classroom, making sure you didn't doze off while the instructor
right.
was speaking. You learn how to pay attention, right? You learn how, and what did I just say, soldier? Man, I'm gonna pay attention next time because if I get called out, and that those things made me a better student, but I still banked on the 16, 17-year-old kid who had to fight extra hard at the end of his senior year to graduate high school because I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's interesting because again, shared experiences, right? We know that oh so well. Um, Again, it's part of not resting at night, not hydrating properly. So you go to class, you have sleepy because you probably was up all night playing video games or doing other stuff. We're just gonna leave it out there doing other stuff, right? And then you go to class, and and let's just be honest, in the middle of Fort Hood, Fort Cavazos, or whatever, it's hot. So if the AC ain't pumping, it's like, man, that sleep monster gets on you, and all of that other stuff happened. So now you didn't get any rest. It's hot, and by that same token, the thing that they're probably teaching might be boring, and the instructor may not be a good instructor as well. So all of those things tend to compound. Plus, you might be kind of slouched down in your chair, which kind of feeds the sleep monster as well. So all of those things happen. These are all lessons that you can learn about yourself, like setting the conditions for you to be successful, right? Getting the proper rest, hydrating, paying attention, even though the instructor might be born or they just don't know how to teach. And that's another thing. I tell students all the time, like, look, you ain't gonna hurt my feelings if you stand up if you get tired. I get it. And after lunch, I make sure I give them the briefing. Listen, this stuff is important. We're talking about today. If you get tired, stand up. Take it upon yourself and stand up. Don't fall asleep, because all of those things factor in. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Let's see. Nadella made mention of at her job, past and present, she had a decision to make whether to settle or to look for other opportunities. I think there's a part two to it as well. So I started mentoring young professionals in my field. Um, and yeah, I think a lot of times we may run into those situations at work to where, yeah, this relationship may have ran its course. Like, I'm thinking something else for my life, but this particular position has kind of like a ceiling on it, and I can't go much further under the current position that I'm in. And a lot of times those positions advertise those in the beginning, so it's not they don't hide it. Like, you may only get to progress one level, especially in the government sector. So you may have to make a business decision for your life, and that may be the move on. And to her point, I think what she is saying is that she mentor young people to kind of plot the course in their life early on, as opposed to allowing the job to dictate what that looks like. So I greatly appreciate that. Michelle, she's reflecting on her time as a soldier as well. Teresa Austin, good to see you and welcome to the conversation. Miss Adrian Artist, good to see you as well. Let's see. Adrian says, "Well, I finished my degree as a newlywed. I felt like a disappointment to her, I guess, to her spouse, because I was always running behind on household duties, cooking, etc." Yeah, I get that. And again, it's juggling multiple things at the same time, and what we have in our head about what success looks like as well. So thank you for sharing that. Let me see. Miss McCoy says, "Getting ready to leave Chicago and then being attacked, I learned that things don't always work the way that you want them to. That was a big setback." Man, thank you for sharing that. And we're sorry to hear that actually happened. And again, that is the easiest space to be in, to where you can, focus solely on what actually happened. So yeah, I got it. I got it. Yep, I agree with you. Being a father is absolutely a huge one.
Yeah.
Because man, listen, especially if you didn't have a father to teach you how to be a father.
Hmm.
Now you're looking at learning en route, figuring it out, failure, failing forward. So yeah, man, I greatly appreciate that. We uncovered a lot of things just within this first question, so I think it's kind of important for us to kind of do the leapfrog to this next one, because in those things, whether we're talking failed marriages, being a father, and learning en route, and job situations, so forth and so on, we realize that we may have some internal barriers that prevent us from taking control. So, what are some common internal barriers that prevent people from taking control, and why do you think they arise?
Ah, man. So one, me personally, I think all internal barriers. I'm gonna go backwards a little bit. They stem from some level of experience and how we perceive those experiences, right? Something someone said to you, you know. I think we talked a few episodes ago about how our community used to speak things positive and negatively into our lives. You know, I remember church ladies used to tell me uh, because who they saw me as a kid, that I was gonna be dead in jail by 21. You know, um, I'm none of those things, and but I that could have played a part in how I saw myself. I'm never gonna be nothing but a street. This, you know what I mean? And I could have stayed there. And we don't realize there's some dudes out there still on the corner because somebody mama told them they weren't gonna be nothing, and they believed them. So it's how we. I think a lot of it stems from there and how we view those experiences. Uh, but some of some of them is self doubt. Some of them are are, are fears. Fear of what? Fear of progressing and fear of failure. Because I think both of those things are real. I know we always talk about fear of failure, but some of us, and I say this all the time, and I know my sister tunes in sometimes, and I love her to death. So, Didi, if you tuning in, or Makai, if you tuning in, I'm not talking bad about your mama, because can't nobody tell me nothing about my sister. I raise, I'll try to raise the dead if I had to come protect my sister and defend her honor, right? But with that said, sometimes when I was growing up, sometimes I used to feel like my sister feared success because all we knew was life from this vantage point. And is it possible for me, a dude who brothers and fathers and sisters are all street people? We we all from the street. That's all I know. That's how I was raised. That's how I talk. That's how I walk. Can I go to the suburbs and be productive? Can I go to corporate and be productive? Can I become Sean first class, Sean major, and be productive? Or are they going to see through me and realize I'm just what they call them in Aladdin? I'm just a street rat, you know. And so I think fear, and that's to me that's a big thing. So anytime I have this conversation, that's something that I stick on. Is fear of success, because so many of us do not believe that we belong there. That's where you get into that imposter syndrome. A lot of us do not believe that we belong where we're going. But if I believe that the Most High is taking me there, then maybe that situation needs me, or I'm prepared to be there anyway. So I think we got to get past where we see ourselves or where we limit ourselves. So those limitations that we put are, and like I said, a lot of it is from our past experiences, how we view them, and how we see them going forward, and how we use them for the future. So I can go on and on about that, but I want to hear from the great mind at the mindset coach.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to start off with limiting beliefs. I think a lot of times we have a limiting belief system that can't even fathom us achieving something beyond anything we've ever seen or experienced. And when I talk about experience, I'm talking about experiencing vicariously through someone else. A lot of times we were never modeled what that version of success looks like that we're trying to achieve. We have a lot of the information that happens that gets instilled in us at a very young age that tells us that you got to be twice as smart and you got to work twice as hard to get ahead. So a lot of that factors into the fear that you're talking about, and then that creates a limiting belief system that prevents you from even, and I won't even just into that trying, right? It prevents you from trying your best when it comes down to the thing. Let's go back and reflect on some of the things that we encountered. Can we really and truly say the things that we failed at, we really and truly tried our best? I'll talk about me in a failed marriage. Can I honestly say that I tried my best during that failed marriage? Absolutely not. I cannot say that and be honest with myself. Now, I know some people will turn around and say, yes, I tried my best, but let's just be completely transparent. There's no other person outside of you that can quantify that information. So if you say it's your best, then it is your best. You did what you knew at the time, and at the end of the day, you probably didn't do it at the 100% at 100% of what you knew to do. And so when we go back and look at it, we ask ourselves a very difficult question: why did I not try my best? Because something in here prevented me from putting my best foot forward. When I go back and look at my military career, do I think I did? Did I think I've accomplished some things? Absolutely. Did I really try my best? Absolutely not. Like some of the stuff that I was doing was literally on autopilot because I got good at some things. And those things I got good at, I did them repeatedly. And I got the results. And ultimately, that's what people wanted was results. So reflecting over your life will make you ask yourself some very difficult questions. And so, for everybody who is listening, like, hey, ask yourself that question: what is the thing? And for me, I'm gonna stick with limiting belief system because I think it's all encompassing, right? That's kind of like where I hung my hat at after learning what that was and how it affected me, right? Because I will not allow anybody to impose limiting belief systems on them, a limiting belief, I'm sorry, impose a limiting belief on themselves in my presence. I will automatically say something against it because at the end of the day, you will create a standard at that particular state before you ever put forth one single solitary effort in the direction of the thing that you could potentially do. So we'll talk ourselves out of it, or we won't believe that we can achieve. And I think Michelle Ray mentioned something along the lines of faith earlier. That's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about not necessarily having the faith to believe that you can do anything outside of something that you've ever achieved. And I believe wholeheartedly, if I see one person do it, I believe I can do it. And I think that's the thing. I'm really at that point in my life where I'm like, I want to do something that I've never seen another person do because I really want to challenge myself to that degree, believing in the Most High to that extent. I want to do something I've never seen another person do. But if I've seen somebody do it, I believe I can do it. I believe I can take piano lessons right now and within the next 2 to 3 years get very good at playing the piano. You know, like that cat right there. I've never played the piano, but I believe I could do it. I've never played the violin, but I believe I can do it. In high school, I used to play the bass clarinet. Didn't think I could do it back then, but again, I got really good at it. So I think a lot of times we impose limitations on ourselves, and that in turn creates the degree of effort that we really put into that particular thing.
I, I love that because so while you were talking, the thing that clicked in my head, and it was really because you talked about how a lot of us in our community we were taught you had to be twice as smart, twice as fast, work twice as hard, twice as better in order to achieve a thing. And really, what we do when we say stuff like that is we negate all the work that was done before us. When I joined the military, I thought it was going to be the hardest job known to man. But there was so much work that was done before I joined that made my job easier, that made information more accessible. You know how, man, as a 42 alpha, I told people if you want to be highly successful, understand that it's already created. There's nothing you're gonna do that is new. I it's so much information out there. I can Google how to do half the stuff nowadays in the military and go figure it out. And so what we did when we said, was there an era where our ancestors had to work twice as hard? Yes. Had to be twice as smart? Yes. But they but what happens, think about it like I think about it like this. Look at LeBron James, right? The only fear that I think that should be there is the fear of not reaching what everybody expects of him, right? But why? He didn't have to. I don't care what nobody say. I don't think he had to work twice as hard to get to the league because of the groundwork that his father paved. Now his name is LeBron James, so the expectation of his ability is higher. So he doesn't have to be as athletic as his father to get there. Now, should he work hard enough to get that kind of athleticism? Sure. I think anything you do, you should try to be great at it, but not because you have to be great just to get in the door, because the work was done before us. So There's a lot of PhD holders that look like us before we showed up, and so that expectation that you're not smart is not, it doesn't exist no more. They know that there's smart people with melanin in this skin. So so that and that's what I'm saying. So we don't have to go back and recreate the wheels that our grandparents and our great grandparents already paved. When we teach the next generation that they have to do what we had to do to attain the thing, we're saying we didn't do enough, or the ones that came before us didn't do enough to to create our opportunity, and that's not true. And so I like that, and I think sometimes we got to put that in our mind so that we get rid of that, at least that level of limited belief.
And here's why I like where you went with it. And if I'm saying the same thing, I do apologize. But I think it might be from a different lens. I think parents have to avoid placing limitations on their child as well, because a lot of times that's where it comes from. Like a lot of times, parents cannot, they cannot like see what is possible for their child because they have their own perspective, and their perspective may not necessarily be without the guardrails that their child actually have. Like think about it, when you were younger, at least I can speak for me. When you were younger, you didn't really have limitations. You was like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? And some of us, being little knuckleheads, we probably thought we could fly like Superman and jumped off something and hit our head on the coffee table. I still got the scar right there, by the way. I'm just saying. um the limitations weren't there. And so a lot of those limitations were injected in you based upon what your parents said. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, that's their perspective. That's what they knew. And their job was to raise you up in the ways that you should go. But that's a whole nother conversation. However, I think there's a way to do that and not impose like your perspective of what they should do with their life on them as well. Because what you don't realize is that a lot of times when that child gets a certain age, they realize like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to follow. I don't want to join the military. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that, or whatever the case may be. Um, Even though it may be good for them, but they have another goal in mind. And so sometimes when that happens, they themselves start feeling some type of anxiety because they don't know how to tell you. They don't know how to be completely transparent and honest with you and say, Mom, Dad, can we really talk? Because I need some help with this thing, but I don't want to tell you what I want to do because I feel you might be disappointed. And so, if parents, if we avoid placing limitations on our child, trying to scope their lives vicariously out of the things that we didn't accomplish or the things that we did accomplish, then what we'll find is that we can probably hear what it is that they think they may want to do, and we help them to do those things. So sometimes those internal barriers are actually injected into you at an early age, and then they become guardrails for you, unfortunately limiting you from doing anything outside of that because of some internal fear that you possess by letting your parents down and things of that nature. So that's the other piece I want to add to it, because I love where you were going. You talk from a cultural perspective, I talk from a family dynamics perspective, and I think all of both of those exist at the exact same time. They exist at the same time because from culturally, I would, turn back the hands of time to like the 70s or maybe in the 60s or 50s. I would probably tell my child, I don't know if you really want to do the doctor thing. Go in and get you a job 9 to 5, get they hiring down at the trash, get taking out. And I'm being serious. Like we've seen the TV shows growing up, like Rock. We thought Rock was a good man. Rock was a trash man, right? He worked really hard. Well, that's kind of like what we envision, men were back then. They worked really hard. They took care of their families. They came home, ate, and probably passed out from exhaustion just so that they can do it all over again. But why? Well, those were more cultural in nature, and kind of like something more high arching that I don't want to get into right now. But just because someone says that you can't do it does not mean that you shouldn't at least try. Give yourself a chance. And so that's kind of like what I wanted to add on to what you were saying, bro. So anything else you want to add before we kind of dive into the chats real quick?
Nah, I'm good. You brought that thing home. I like that.
Yeah, man, I'm just totally against limiting beliefs. Let me kind of go back up because I want to give everybody the credit here. think Michelle Ray started with lack of motivation and faith. Adrian Artist mentioned missing encouragement. Lisa Keys mentioned common barriers are born through influence. I agree. This brother here wrote a book. I felt that other people's opinion were more important than how I thought about a thing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, what if you have the drive, but you are afraid of failure because you don't have some kind of encouragement? What are your thoughts there, bro?
Um, Something that sounds cliche but has become the realest thing in my life today is be encouraged by your own motivation. Um, I have I have a corner, I have a circle, but there are things that I want to do that I probably haven't shared with them for real, and I'm not if I, whether I go after them or not are not based off of whether or not they tell me to go get them. You know, I see my circle is really tight, coach and Roland. Like uh, Un- Uncle Junior as well. But I really talk with Coach and Roland all the time. But I know that they will have my back once I say this is what I want to do and I start pursuing. They're gonna have my back, whether or not it works or not. They're gonna be in my corner. But me going after that thing is not dependent upon that. So we have to sometimes be motivated or be encouraged by our own motivation. Like my motivation is, I'm not trying to be the next $3 billion company, but I'm trying to. I want to get to a place in my life. I finally see myself in a light to where I can create passive income for myself, to where there's not a struggle. Right? I'm not, and there's a difference between being rich and not having to struggle. I could create enough passive income to where I can take care of everything I want to take care of and be able to be there for others in my life, right? Um, so I'm motivated by that. I'm motivated by the fact that this is where I want to be, and that is what's making me do the research. That's what's making me do the homework. That's what's making me start to really understand what are realistic goals down achieving that thing and getting there. But I think once we start depending on other people to motivate us or to encourage us, I think that's a recipe for failure because let God be true and every man be a lie. So, and when I hear that, I don't just think about they don't always tell me the truth or maybe their encouragement is wrong. But this times they're not going to be there to encourage me when I need that encouragement. They're going to let me down at some point. When I think I need them to say, "Hey, bro, you got this," and pat me on the back, they're not going to be there. Am I going to stop? I'm not. So knowing what I want to achieve out of that thing, that's going to be my motivation.
Yeah, there's a linkage that I'm seeing in this question. Um, and the linkage is between encouragement and success. Um, and so my initial thought or question to this question is, what is the connection between encouragement and success for you? How do you define success? What would failure look like en route to success? And if you do fail, does that mean you quit? You said you have the drive, right? So if you have the drive, failure is only failure when you do not try again. So that drive should keep you, um, you know, continuously trying. So understand what success looks like. Once you hit perceived failure, then analyze the lesson that you learned in that particular moment. What did failure teach you? Kind of like what we talked about previously in the beginning. Um, when you look at how did I contribute to this thing? What did I miss? And so forth and so on. What am I learning in the midst of said failure? Then take that lesson and apply it to what you're doing and then try again. And then what you'll find is that what stopped you before won't stop you the next time, or if it did, it won't stop you as much. And then eventually you'll get over that hurdle that prevented you from achieving success. And then you just keep repeating that process all the way to your desired level of success. So, again, looking at this question, understand the linkage in this question between encouragement and success, define success, and then identify the things that that can potentially lead to your perceived failure en route to success. And I think once all of those questions are asked, I think that will be the answer to this particular question. Because ideally, some people look at this and be like, "Oh, well, just that's not meant for you to do." I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree that not necessarily hitting your mark of failure defines that this was not meant for you to do. Sometimes that lesson that you learned or was supposed to learn in that moment is a lesson that you were supposed to learn previously, but you may not have learned it then. So that's where I would go with this. And again, great question. I hope we answered your question. And again, you guys keep them coming. We love questions. We love questions. Um,
And I have a.
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Is it possible? And I think I know the answer, but I'm just fishing uh, from the mindset coach. Is it possible that once I find the linkage, that what was two part actually? Is it possible that the linkage only exists because of me? That I'm creating that link between success and encouragement? And is it possible for me to erase that link to get to success?
So when you ask me a question to start off, is it possible? The answer is always yes.
Always
But
there.
it's always yes. But to your point, absolutely. I think a lot of times what we'll find is that the number one reason why that linkage exists is because I am putting it there. I am creating that linkage because of something subconscious in my mind. And then once the information that happens in real time reveals to me something about me, then I can start how can I say it? I can start adjusting my behavior. I say it that way. I can start adjusting my behavior so now I can create a new habit. And so even though the thing it may create fear, but what is fear? What does fear look like for me in that moment? You know what I'm saying? Does it render me to the point to where I procrastinate? Does it render me to the point to where I don't do anything whatsoever? Does it render me to the point to where I quit totally? Then I have to ask the question, why did I quit? Why do I procrastinate? Why do I just don't try again? So all of those things are possible for me, but I have to do the work to understand what that linkage look like, understand how I behave in that moment, and then now recreate that in my mind so it does not render me to quit, procrastinate, or whatever the third thing I said that I can't remember right now. So did that answer your question?
Hey, that did. That did. Like
Great.
I said, I felt like I knew the answer, but
You knew the answer. I know you knew the answer. The process of failure, absolutely. Um, fear of being fear and being insecure, most likely because of what someone spoke over you from childhood. Absolutely, absolutely. Kind of like what we talked about previously. So you're spot on. Um, Lisa said the lack of confidence can cause us to take control and stay stuck in confusion. This is why community is so important. I love the fact that she said that, because I think and I'm just being honest, I got a lot of great training from home, but some of the best advice I got came outside of the home. It came from other people. And to be honest with you, the best piece of advice came from somebody who doesn't look like me. So I think what we have to do is define community. Sure, our community should be a particular thing, but that particular thing should be mindset, not necessarily skin color, not necessarily gender, and so forth and so on. So I kind of want to put that out there. Not saying that we can't have community like that, but when we just limit ourselves to that, again, limitations are not good for us. So thank you for that, Lisa Keys. So that being said, this brother says survivor's remorse. Now, you're going to have to unpack that and make that make sense. Help me understand what you mean when you say survivor's remorse.
Hold on, I got to take
there
it
he
up.
goes.
He was on my ear too. Thank you, brothers, for y'all didn't wait on me, but I was listening in my ear while I was speeding down the highway, not wanting police. I think survivor's remorse came from not the last question, but the previous question about things that hold, internal things. Because sometimes when we make it out, like we make it out of the ghetto, we make it to some perceived level of education or whatever it is, and we look back on those people that we left behind supposedly, or that didn't attain certain things. We have an internal thing that says, man, I got to dumb myself down in order to be around them. So I can't talk about my accolades. I can't speak a certain way. I have to dumb down my level of communication so that now I can blend in, I can fit in. Sometimes we as a culture, we do that to the fullest, and because we don't want to seem as if we aren't relatable to them, like we haven't moved on. So that was to that question.
No, I greatly appreciate that. I just want to understand. But yeah, I get that wholeheartedly. Crystal, you say evil Knievel. You're gonna have to make. I don't understand what you mean when you say that. Um, Abe said, I don't think we should teach the new generation our perspective. Let them be self directed and find their own perspective. We just try to guide them through the process. Yeah, I can agree with that. And in their younger years, they need a lot more guidance. But then as they get older, you kind of take the guardrails off a little bit and let them fail and then ask them the questions about the lessons that they learn in failure. That way, when they become adults, they don't fear failure becomes a part of their process at an early age. So thank you for saying that. Nadella said, my parents pushed me, but I did not have the confidence because I couldn't see what they were seeing. But now I do. Yep, absolutely. Great point. Glad you said that. And last but not least, brother James Samuel, good to see you. I believe failure is part of the success story. It depends on how everyone handles the failure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Failure is part of the developmental process. Listen, greatly appreciate everybody and all of the comments that you're leaving. Keep them coming. Again, go ahead and if you have not done so yet, hit the like button and go ahead and share it as well. Because at the end of the day, this is, like I said in the beginning, this is a very good conversation that you're going to find a lot of self and professional development caught up into this. So the next, as we progress, we're going to talk about fear and doubt, as everyone already did, and understanding their influence. Now, I think it's important for us to not only just recognize that fear exists, but like what's some of those things that could put you in that particular situation, kind of like what we talked about, what I mentioned previously. So, how can one recognize when fear or doubt is distorting their perception of what's possible? Remember, perspective is what I see when I look out. Perception is what I receive as it comes in.
Well, I speak for myself, right? I know fear and doubt has played a major role in, and when I say where I'm at in my life, is not that I feel like I have failed in life or anything like that. Um, I feel like I could have achieved more in life, right? Even from the sense of buying a home later in my adulthood, because I I I personally only know a handful of homeowners, outside of the military, right? And I feel like, somebody has a different blueprint than I had, or whatever the case may be. Uh, but it was the reality that everyone else saw something in themselves to try, and I didn't. And I had to start asking myself, is it is it that I'm not capable, or is it because I'm telling myself I'm not capable? Because there's no way in the world everyone else can do a thing, and I'm the only one who can't, and I'm in the same position as the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? And so that's when I realized the onus was on me. Uh, and so I think when we're looking at fear and doubt, we have to look at our life and say, and I think everyone should do this at some point. Look at our life and say, why haven't I tried to do this thing that I wanted to do? Why haven't I tried? And when you look at the why, I think more times than not, you're looking, you see it's because of you. You doubted, you feared going after it. You know, People tell me all the time. I'm like, man, did y'all see Ford? Ford, Ford when I first bought. I think I told Roland when I first bought Ford at like $8, and then less than a year later, it was almost at $20. And I had bought 40, well, however many, none of y'all business, how many stocks I bought. No, I'm joking. But I went and I bought a bunch of stock in it. He's like, hey, have you looked at this currency? Look into that. I looked into that, and I didn't go after that. And he's like, man, this just moved up. And why didn't I go after that? And why other people, when I tell them about Ford, they tell me I'm not going to the stock market so I can lose money. That's fear. I ain't tell you to put your life savings in the Ford. You could put $100 into it when it was $8. All right, but the something told you that you can't do a thing, and then when it went up and I made money off it, you always say, man, I should have done it, and because I did it for a long time. But the reason is, why didn't I not go after the thing that other people are already successful at? It's because I didn't see it. I was afraid to lose my money. I was afraid to do this, or I doubted that I had the capability.
I think how can one recognize when fear or doubt is distorting their perception of what's possible? Whenever you allow that fear to dictate whether or not you no longer continue in said venture. I did air assault. Anybody know me? I don't like heights. I don't like heights. You can say afraid, whatever, but I don't like heights. But because I wanted said tab, I knew what I was going to have to do. Is you one of them people?
No, can you explain air assault for the people who never been in the Army, please, sir?
You have airborne, you have air assault. Air assault is if you ever seen someone hanging out of a helicopter sliding down, or when you're rappelling down the building and all these other things. But it also you are those that come across when it's time to place things on a plane or on a device to be carried away from point A to point B. That's you. You get up there, you load it up, you lock it in, and they maneuver it, and you can also rappel and do all these things. But everything is done in the air. So you have to get used to heights. And for some people like myself who have this thing where I'd rather have my feet on the ground, but I wanted said patch, so I had to get not used to, but I had to push past my fears. So I had to recognize that if I allow this thing to control me, now there is no fight or flight. It's merely a fright, and I won't do it. So I'm holding myself back from progress. And when you hold yourself back from progress because of the fear of either failure or of the unknown, that's where I'm seeing this thing. It's neither fight nor flight, because as a medic in the military, he was talking about we had, when everything goes off, everybody runs away. My job is to run towards. So the fight or flight will come in, and those that epinephrine and those other amphetamines and whatnot in your brain will tell you, hey, I'm either going to fight this thing or I'm going to run away. So instead of running away, I run towards, and you have to get used to these types of behaviors. So it's ingrained in you. But when you recognize that doubt and that fear, you gotta not just recognize the doubt and the fear, but see why it came about. Why am I afraid of this thing? What am I afraid of hitting the ground? Am I afraid of this? So then now I gotta say, okay, if I'm afraid of that, that means that my training is subpar. That means that I'm not taking into consideration that I'm not in this thing by myself. Just like if I know I have a business venture, I know I got at least two people that's going in this business venture with me. So I can pick their brains and I can say, okay, what about this? And what about that? Now, do I allow that communication to be the determining factor in said venture? No, because if it's my baby, it's my job to take care of it. It's my job to birth it. And recognizing fear or doubt is one of those things that'll help you tremendously when you're trying to move forward, because you'll recognize it and not move backwards, but move into it.
Yeah. No, I'm not jumping out no perfectly good airplane. I'm not jumping off no flying helicopter. I don't understand that. Why would you do that? Why would you do such a thing? Listen, if I'm in a plane, I'm going all the way down to the scene of the crash. Me and the pilot. It's just what's no, seriously though. I always take my hat off for people like that. I came down on orders to go to Fort Bragg one time, and I was like, nope, not gonna happen. But I did hear something in the midst of what y'all were talking about. I heard Gad, and I like the fact that you went there, because I think everybody here remember when the .com bubble was a thing, and everybody had the opportunity to invest in Microsoft and Yahoo. And at the end of the day, we probably missed the initial IPO, but then we seen it when we got wind of it. It's probably like at, I don't know, $500+ a share. Now, I heard you mention about military training that would help you overcome fear. And if fear presents itself, then my training wasn't good enough. So what is the training that would prevent that I needed to undergo that would help me not have that fear for when, say, like the next big thing happens, investing in the next big thing?
When it comes to like what Gaddy was talking about, like I like to look at patterns, and that's all stocks are. Stocks are patterns. Stocks, and whether it be Bitcoin. I remember I had Bitcoin at $200, and I bought it, and then it went up, and I said, "Man, let me take my money off this thing." And now it's what, 90,000 or whatever it is. But it's one of those things where the fear of loss will say, "Hey, you didn't follow the pattern through. What you did is you saw it elevate a little, and before it could snatch your little heart, snatch your little money, you took it out. So you were in the fear realm versus you saying, okay, I have some doubts, but let me follow this thing through. Let me follow the patterns." So when it comes to those, it's all about patterns. It's all about what's the next best thing in people's mindsets, because you already know Christmas time is going to be some things, just like when C-19 hit. I told Tuwami, I don't know if he did, I said, and I don't know if you can say it on here, but buy those things that go out of the pew pew, and anything that deals with the weapons, put your money on it, because people gonna go crazy and they gonna start buying this stuff up, and then that way the stocks go up.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of a difference, though, I think, because you talk about Bitcoin and Coach, you talked about the .com bubble. It I think the one thing that we are afraid of is not seeing the pattern and or taking the risk. And so sometimes, because me, I'm big on, like, when people are like, oh, I got this new website, oh, you heard about Temu or Sheen or whatever the case may be. I like, to each his own. But I waited, kind of like what you're talking about with the pattern. I waited until people got stuff and they wore it, and they said, "Man, good. It came fast. I didn't lose my money. It was cheap. It worked." And I was like, "Okay, let me buy something small." Oh yeah, it worked. Let me buy something else, and it worked. So, but but what about when the pattern don't exist? It's just noise. You know, at that point, can I commit to a thing? And I think that's one of the things with taking risk, is that when we talk about failure, well, with the stock market, what does failure look like? Losing that money. Am I willing to say I'm committing this money to this thing? And you made a couple of dollars and you pulled your money out, like you say, now it's at 90. It was, I think its high this week was 96,000, right? And you had it at 200. So yes, you didn't see the pattern yet, but you pulled your money out while it was going up. But sometimes I think, and I'm trying to word it right, but sometimes we got to go after a thing and commit to it. Because some people who committed to it and left their money in there, I knew a guy when it was at 30,000 already made $25,000 on it. Now he probably got $200,000 after 90 something. How much higher is it going to go? It's going to come back down. But when fear sometimes keeps us from committing, even when we do go after a thing, we don't commit to it all the way and see it through. And that to me is where fear really takes its effect in our life. Yes, I went after the thing, but I did not see it through and reap the full benefit of the thing because I didn't commit all the way to. Am I making sense? 'Cause
No,
I feel like I'm.
you're making sense, and that's exactly what I'm going. First and foremost, this is not anything, and anything we're talking about right now is not financial advice, by the way. But that was the point I was going. Like, I got what the market is doing and all that other great stuff, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to control that. But the only thing I can control is me. And so, at the end of the day, when it comes down to fear and doubt, fear will either make me extremely hesitant to do a thing or it make me not do a thing at all. And so, because of those things that I actually ingest, the training that I was getting at, and I'm with what Roland was saying, like the training that you undergo, especially in the military, that's the thing that makes you overcome the potential fear that you would have had if you never had the training. You revert to that particular training, and that becomes muscle memory. Well, the muscle memory that most of us don't get when we're growing up is the muscle memory of committing to a thing regardless of what it looks like. And I think a lot of times, when we get said information or whatever the case may be, we see a thing like, oh my God, that's too expensive. That's fear talking to you at that particular point in time. The question is, are you going to invest in it or not? Are you going to invest in yourself or not? Well, I want to invest in myself, but that's too expensive. Well, which one is more important to you? How expensive that is, or you yourself? And if I can't see myself being the value of that thing, or I used what I make per hour at work as my measuring stick to purchase said thing or whatever that looks like, now what I'm doing is I'm saying that my job is more important than my future. And that does not necessarily, and I hate to say it this way, it doesn't really pass a common sense test, because at the end of the day, we will go and spend money on things that have a zero sum return. Jordans, I don't care what they cost. They have a zero sum return when you put them on your feet. They will not give you anything back. You may feel good because you're more concerned with the outside of who you are, but growth happens from the inside out, not the outside in. So those things, although, I get it, that's our prior conditioning, but we have to identify where the prior conditioning does not necessarily yield to the future that a person may desire. And because of that condition, we were trained in the wrong direction. Well, when these things present themselves, it's like, can't do that, but we would jump on that. And again, that has a zero sum return. So that's what I was trying to get at. So thank you guys for sharing that. Michelle talking about repelling. Abe, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. Best time of your life, but I ain't with you with jumping out falling. That's what they call it, falling, not jumping. You jump out of an airplane, you fall out of a helicopter. I ain't doing it. I'm just gonna put it out there. I love all y'all who did it. I appreciate y'all because that's how I got to sign deck statements and keep my feet on the ground. Next, we're gonna go with beliefs and mindset, challenging limiting beliefs. Again, one of my favorite topics to talk about because at the end of the day, that's what I kind of hang my hat on. And the key here is I want us to realize that identifying limiting beliefs is a way to getting to the point to where we can cultivate an empowering mindset. So that being said, what are some limiting beliefs you think people commonly hold that keep them from fully taking charge of their lives? Roller, you can go first on that one. Gaddy went first the last time.
Yeah. What are some limiting beliefs that I think people commonly hold? I think for us, we have an innate limiting belief that we can't do something because somebody else is holding us back. So we will hold on to it as a people and say, this man did it. And it's because of this. And we all understand that nobody understands it more than me, that there are systems of oppression, systems of whatever. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. And when you put that limiting belief out there in the air and put it in your mindset, now it becomes your psyche. Now it becomes who you are. It becomes your very being. So when you told yourself you couldn't do a thing because somebody else was holding you back, you are the somebody else that's holding you back, because now you won't even try to do it because you see the it before you see the results. You see the failure before you see success. So that's, I'll throw that one out there. See where Tuami goes.
I actually like that because that is what I was thinking. And I'm not going to comment on it just yet. I'll wait till the conversation develops. But for me, it because it was mine early on in life, which is I'm destined to fail. Right? I just believe, and it's because I've tried things, and it's kind of the conversation we're having now. I've tried things and it didn't work, and so I abandoned shit. That's failure because I didn't try again. Right? I just let that one time failure say that I couldn't make it. I couldn't do it. Not to go after it. And because I came from a level of unsuccess, and part of it is because I felt like, you know, yes, the system was designed for me to fail. I felt like at a point, but I also felt like I was just destined to remain what I always was. Find wealth, financial stability wasn't coming to me. Success wasn't coming to me. Owning my own business didn't belong to me because I wasn't capable. Whatever it is, something in the air destined me to be this, and I stayed there. And that mindset, I think comes from a plethora of things. It comes from the things we see around us, the people who are around us, and the things that we have allowed to feed our ear, right? If I listen, if men today only listen to social media when it comes to relationships, we will believe that all women hate men, that all women just want to extort men for their money, that all women want to do nothing in relationships and men do everything. No, just those women that are on social media. But if you get your butt off of social media and talk to real women, you find out that it's actually more of them that don't have that mindset, but they're not on social media, right? And so it's because what you have allowed to go into your ear, what you have allowed to go into your psyche, and so you're stuck there thinking and looking at things that way. That's why you believe you can achieve or you're destined for what you have. And it's something I heard a long time ago. They said if you put yourself in the circle around people who's chasing success, it'll become part of your identity to chase success because you see it around you. You see your circle doing it. Everybody in your circle going and registers a business. You see yourself able to register a business, and you'll go after it, and y'all start doing things because y'all doing it together. Your brothers, your homeboys are doing it. And that's how we got caught up in the stuff we did in the street. Not gonna say what we did, but a lot of us got caught up in it because the people we hung with did it. It was easy because we saw it. Anybody that tell you selling drugs is easy money, no, only to people who sees it, who's around it, because they know the game. So it seems as if that's easy, but it's not easy if you ain't never sold a thing in your life. You know what I'm saying? Because it's so, not that I got the blueprint to it, because I'm not putting that out there. That's not what this podcast is about. So the YouTube people, please leave us alone. So I'm not promoting that, right? But to some people, that's easy money because that's what's around them. But here's the kicker that my brothers have figured out at 50. Well, they ain't figured out at 50. They just 50 right now. But that doing this thing makes you a smarter businessman. You've been doing business this whole time. You just ain't been paying taxes. You've been accounting your own money. You've been monitoring your own product. You've been restocking, building networks and connections. You've been I know, Coach. I'm just saying, but if you could do that, you could do this. but it's just what we've been around, what we allowed to feed our mind. And I'm gonna get off of that because I'm making Coach sweat. I'm not gonna get into trouble.
I mean, sound like we're going to the Nino Brown School of Entrepreneurship right now. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
I was trying to figure what was like. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But
Hey, hello, man. Oh man. So I'm obviously you guys know I'm tracking what you guys are talking about. I think we have to go back and recognize that a limiting belief system is something in essence that was not necessarily assigned to me, but I heard it, somebody placed it on me, I've seen it, it's been in a culture and everybody looks like me and I embody it as my own. And that's where the mistake coming at. I embody it as though it is a part of my identity. And then that thing, because it is an identity, it now becomes a limitation for my behavior. I mean, we can talk about a number of different things. I remember one particular point in time, it was a common phrase that all men are dogs, right? And for any man who embodied that, they just, okay, well, fine, since I'm a dog, I'm gonna behave like one. And I used to hear that a lot, to be honest with you. And then there's an old saying, and I heard this a long time ago, and I know you guys heard it as well, that wherever a man lays his wallet, that's where his heart's at. And I don't think that that's a false statement, but here's where I think it becomes a false statement per se, because when you look at how they're articulating, you know, us spending our money, then it would give the impression that our heart is in looking good. And here's the sad part about it. Going back to Gaddy's, reference of social media, I struggle when I look at social media not seeing that. So I think what we have to realize is that this can be a limitation for me if I allow it to be a limitation. My gender can be a limitation for me if I allow it to be a limitation. Anything external, and when I say external, I mean external of my being, right? The outside, the exterior of me. Like that is a limitation if I allow it to be a limitation, because in most cases, what I'm trying to do is take information and apply it to an aspect of me where that information was never intended to be. And because I do that, I struggle with that particular information because I find it very difficult to make it work. So now when you look at it, what you see is entitlement. And here's the funny part about it. We'll talk about one group of people that's entitled because they feel they deserve everything. But then there's another group of people that's entitled because they want everything given to them. So both of them are limitations, because at the end of the day, it really means that I'm not going to do nothing for the thing that I'm supposed to get. And now, because of that, I'm not going to do anything. And so that's part of the struggle when I listen to and look at some of the things that go on uh, in this particular day and age. And so we have to recognize anything that was never assigned to me that I either heard or seen, and I embodied that. Now, can I say that there is information that I can share with you that actually was assigned to you? You just didn't know it was assigned to you, and you can embody that and it will liberate you? Absolutely. So I think what we have to recognize is the limitations in our beliefs. Therefore, in order to get there, I need to learn how to challenge assumptions. So you can tell me all day long, oh, well, you 5'8". Ain't nowhere in the world you can dunk a basketball. Watch. You know what I'm saying? Because now I can't really. Don't judge me. But now I have the opportunity to go out there and challenge it. And now, in order for me to challenge that, I have to do something. I have to put in the work and keep trying to dunk, strengthen my legs, strengthen my, increase my vertical and all that other great stuff. So when I put in the work, now I can prove that thing that these brothers told me, and they didn't tell me that, by the way, but I'm just gonna say that they did, that these brothers told me, because they know I'm 5'8". You 5'8", you can't dunk no basketball. Okay. So now I got the opportunity to disprove it. That's what that looks like. Challenging assumptions is the way to overcome limiting beliefs. But the issue is that most of us don't necessarily understand the difference between facts, assumptions, I'm sorry, let me back up. Yeah, facts, assumptions, opinions, and then just, whatever. And so, because we struggle with identifying reality, we cannot necessarily challenge an assumption because a lot of times what we end up doing is challenging facts. How are you going to challenge that this is a black cup? You can challenge it all day long. I don't really care. A black cup is still a black cup. So that's the thing I wanted to add to it because like I said, I see where you guys were and I'm with you, but I just kind of wanted to unpack it a little bit more so it can make sense to everybody else. So anything else that you guys wanted to add to this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach. I was just thinking of a limited, what I consider a limiting belief that's been pushed on us because of the almost information. All you got to do is pray. That's a limiting belief. So people out there think, well, I prayed about it and I prayed about it. And first, you don't know how to pray. You don't know what to pray for. You don't know. So it's like you're putting out words, but with prayer comes action. But you don't have the action part. So unless you have that active part so that it will move your faith, then the prayer is you might as well be saying you can say any words. And that's that limiting belief because we will think that the Most High didn't move on our behalf because I asked him for it. So since I asked him and he didn't do it, now my faith is limited. No, your faith was limited to begin with because in order to ask, you have to ask in his name and his power and his being. So now you got to know him. So that means you have to have said relationship. And without said relationship, you might as well go ask the mailman for what you want. He'll bring it faster than the Most High. So I think that's one of those limited beliefs that we as a culture, and I'm talking believing culture, that we don't have the works and faith working together so that our prayer will come about.
I like that. I like that. If I pray for something more than once, is that not evidence that I did not have faith when I prayed the first time? I'm just asking. All right, I'm gonna keep it. We're gonna keep it moving. Next, the next question that we're about to bring up, because man, time is getting away from us. I got to skip down to responsibility and accountability, taking ownership. Now, at the point of challenging assumptions, like there's some work that I have to do. I can't just challenge an assumption and say, okay, cool, I just challenged an assumption, touchdown, I win. No, there's work that must be done at that point. And that takes us to responsibility and accountability or taking ownership. So why do you think taking full responsibility of one's life is so crucial in achieving personal control?
So I'm a little torn with this one. So because when I see the caption of full responsibility for one's life, I see, and I'm not saying that this is what the question is asking, but for me, I see the absence of the hand, the power of the Father, right? And I don't think that it takes away from the conversation because I think Roland kind of led us into that concept, right? Because one thing I don't want is I don't want full control or responsibility over my life. I want responsibility over my actions within my life, right? But I want the Father to bless the thing. I want him to have the responsibility of making the work that I have done uh, not just acceptable, but make it prosperous. So when I touch a thing, I want the Father to touch it with me, right? Um, and I know we're playing semantics at some point when we do this. So I am careful about that. But even with that said, I can't get to a place to where like Roland kind of got to that. I can't get to a place to where I say God got it, and so now I don't have to. I don't have no human responsibility in the thing in the continuous success. This way, when I fail, I can say, well, God didn't have it in the plan for me. That's a cop out, right? So yes, the Father can touch it and can bless it, but you still got to work it, right? Israel prayed over their crop. They gave their first fruit every year, right? Of their crop, but they still worked it. They still plowed the field. They still planted the seed. They still made sure it was watered, even when they prayed for him to send the rain because it was drought, right? You know, they still had to do their part. They still had to make sure there was something for the Father to bless. And so and so that I think we have to. So when I say what's the uh, what's the importance, or why is it crucial in achieving personal control, is because the Father requires for us to do work. So anything that you put that you pray for the Father to do, you have to work. We have to get past this thing that I believe it, and so I don't have to do anything else because I believe. No, you have to work. Thank you for your faith, but if you don't show the works of that faith, it's dead. And guess what? So would that business be that you have faith in because you didn't work it. You know. So I'm glad Roland kind of led us down that direction because that's exactly how I view this question. So and I know I kind of rambled in there a little bit, but you you have to put your part forward if you want, even if you want the Father to bless it, if you want the Father to touch it. But I don't want nobody else being responsible for my failures nor my success but me. If I give responsibility to the man for why I failed, then I have to give responsibility to the man for why I succeeded. That's all I got.
I like that. In this question, why do you think taking I have to take full responsibility for anything that deals with me? Because responsibility means that something is given to my charge. I'm responsible for, I'm responsible over. And my life, even though it's in his hand, he has given me charge to do certain things, to act a certain way, to be a certain type of person. And when I do said things, now I can have other things that he said that I can have if I do those things. So the responsibility comes with first learning, what am I responsible for? First, I got to know, what am I, like with children. If I don't know what I'm responsible, what I'm responsible for, I'm going to abuse the children. Whether it be I'm overfeeding them, I'm not teaching them enough, I'm shielding them when they should be learning from certain things. And that's what happens to us, even as grown people, when we first, like, and I know I did it, when my daughters would call and say, Daddy, I need. And instead of allowing them to fall, hit it, and get back up, I would shield them from that pain. And it shows later on in life because now they're thinking that, oh, Daddy's supposed to help me be responsible in this area instead of them being responsible in said area. I think that when you're responsible for things and you show that you can be responsible in the ups and the downs and go through it and get better because of what you went through, you're going to have some pains. It's called growing pains for a reason. But that shows the progress, and the achievement now becomes like, man, I respect the process as much as I respect the end game.
Yeah, I'm try to keep mine a little brief here. It does not matter what relationship you're in. There is a responsibility metric that you have to embody. There is no, I don't know where it comes from. Well, I know where it comes from. Um, it doesn't make sense for us to believe that we're in relationship and we're entitled to what somebody else is supposed to do for me. Um, to where the reality is, I'm in relationship. There are things that I am charged to do, and the other person becomes the beneficiary of me actually doing those things. Until we understand that, then we're going to miss one of the most important aspects of that concept, the fact that I am in relationship with my creator. So, like these gentlemen are saying, that there's some things that he is going to do, but there's a lot that I must do. I have to be a part of this relationship that I'm being in. Oh, yeah, there's another relationship that's happening as well. There's a relationship with my external man and my internal man that I have to get under control. And if I don't necessarily do the necessary work to ensure that that relationship is intact, then I'm always going to struggle, and I'm always going to want people to see me from my external being. I want them to see me as a 5'8" black male, African American male. Why? Because eventually I'm going to try to use it to my advantage. I'm a black male. What are you going to give me? Right? That's the thing. So we got to be careful with that, because when we try to live our life from the outside in, we're going to try to manipulate everybody that we can to get as much as we possibly can from them. Once we learn to live our life from the inside out, then we become more of a helper, a servant, and things of that nature. So I just kind of wanted to add that to what these gentlemen are saying. Um, that said, gentlemen, I think that brings us to our bittersweet moment. And before we go there, I kind of want to set the conditions before that actually happens, because I'm gonna give one last question, and I want you guys to kind of incorporate the answer to that question as we go forth. And we're gonna start off with Roland first, then Gaddy, and then I come on the end. So the question, let me get to it and bring it up so you guys can prep. The question is, what are the first steps someone can take to actively take control of their life? What are the first steps that someone can take to actively take control of their life? So, again, Roland, you're going to be on deck first. All right, you guys ready?
Ready or not, here we come. First, I appreciate the topic today. What's holding you back from taking control of your life? Because to me, that's a simplistic answer, but it's just nuance. It's simplistic because I would be at the head of every conversation that I would think of with anything holding me back in my life. It would start and end with me, because the whether it be my fellowship, my obedience, my disobedience, whatever that is that allows me not to succeed, not to accomplish goals, not to be where I think I should be, it has to begin and end with myself. Now, with the final question, adding that in there, I think, what are some of the first steps? Your first steps is surrendering. When you surrender to a higher power, higher than yourself, then you recognize that I don't necessarily answer just to me. So now you start to seek that guidance. You start to see, how can I please him? How can I be obedient towards him? So I'm surrendering and I'm under subjection to his will, his way, and how he wants me to move. And that would be the first step that I would see as being necessary in everything that you do. Because when you recognize that I serve a higher authority, now I know that I represent him and not just myself. Because I'm representing him and not merely Roland or whatever poor man's Dr. Phil. Now it determines how I act, how I move, and how I live before men. That's it.
Oh man, I love this. This conversation is hard to let this one go, man. So, but for the question, right? What are some steps we could take towards taking control of our lives? I think it's important that we understand what is the thing that we're trying to achieve, right? What is that thing? What does that look like? Right? Maybe a specific business, or maybe some type of venture. Like I said, for me, it's like just a level of financial comfortability. I guess I can take care of everything. I don't want to paycheck to paycheck. I want to bring in passive income on top of what I do. Um, so that may look like real estate. That may getting some property, owning property, right? I don't have maybe not take care of it, get a property manager, whatever that looks like. But if I know what that thing is, I think at that point, once I know what that looks like, I have to now start doing the research. I'm a big proponent on a lot of times we psych ourselves out because we do not have enough information on a thing. When I say that I can't own property because I don't know what that looks like, well, go find a realtor, talk to them, get some realistic ideas of what this process looks like to own your own portfolio, right? And then and then start figuring out what are some achievable steps towards getting this done. Like like getting my credit score right. Something that I can do. So we have to be responsible for these things, and we can't allow self doubt. We can't allow fear. We can't allow limited beliefs to tell us that we can't do a thing. Half the times you cannot do it because you don't have the right information. Go seek it out, make achievable goals, and start taking the first step. And I think when you take that first step and you celebrate your small wins along the way, things become things become more visual for you. You can see it in the horizon. It's not because God didn't do it. It's not because God didn't have it in the plans for you. Yes, pray that He bless it and He touch it. Get Him involved in that thing. But start taking the steps today and watch how the Father allows that to grow. He'll allow your crop to grow, but He needs you to plow that field. So go and do the work. I promise you. It only thing that you can gain from it is experience and more information and more knowledge, right? Failure or success. So with that, I say, you know, all praises be to the Most High. I love you, and let's keep pushing. And since we have a community, let's keep encouraging each other.
Well, I love everybody's responses. I'm gonna keep mine simple, but even though I'm gonna keep it simple, I think it's probably the most difficult thing to do, and that is own it. Own your own stuff. I think for the most part, we struggle in the space of recognizing where we can improve at because we don't necessarily own the fact that we are probably a large contributing factor to the space that we exist in. I tend to say quite frequently that we are fully participative in every situation that we're in. And until we own that, then we will only identify the space that, affected me, the space that was external to me. Like this happened to me, the system, the man, my ex, whatever that looks like. But there is an aspect of your own behavior that you must own. Until you own it, then it's going to be very difficult for you to correct it. And the struggle there is that you're going to go from situation to situation to situation and the result is going to be very similar, but yet you have not realized that you're the common denominator. So own it, do some self reflection, some assessments, and so forth and so on, and own the reality of your behavior and change the things that you know you're supposed to change about yourself so that you can produce the behavior so that you can now take responsibility for your own life. And that's my final thoughts for this evening. Why are we in that? Listen, I enjoyed this conversation. I thought it was good. I greatly appreciate everybody. Again, shout out to Brother Garfield, man. Get better. And for you guys don't know, it's like this is that season. that season where you got to be consciously aware of what you're doing and who you're around. So make sure that you're loading up on vitamins and things of that nature. So, but again, I greatly appreciate you guys. Greatly appreciate everybody in the chats. You guys, as always, added value. Again, I hope this conversation was profitable for you. Again, do not forget tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. right here. We will be on the Hearts of Women. And it's going to be the Hearts of Women and the Hearts of Men having another one of those candid conversation. Listen, you guys are awesome. You guys are just fantastic. And that being said, have a great rest of your evening. And remember, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else.